So let's understand how the tax and accounting industry works, because we all know to some extent or certain parts of that one. We go probably once a year to our local CPA with whom we've been dealing for the last 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 30 years, whatever it may be, to actually file our tax return. And maybe we call him or her, a few times a year for some advice and so on and so forth. If you're actually a business owner, then you are probably dealing with the CPA ongoing basis, or they are doing your accounting and so on and so forth. But nobody really understands, I'm talking the outside world, how the accounting industry works or the tax industry work, or how there's a mismatch of expectation. And this industry is also going through the transformation due to AI and also due to the change in overall perspective, largely due to the media, because now you can go on your Instagram or TikTok or Facebook or YouTube, whatever you're looking, and certainly if you're high earning individuals, either in terms of business or the W2, these are the social media platform are very smart enough to figure out. So they will start showing you some, tax strategy videos. There are some internet or the actual social media guru talks about how to save money, and you go to your CPA and say, hey, I want to do this one, and CPA says, no, it is too risky. If you're going to do that one, IRS is going to audit. So now you're really confused. Who is right? Is my CPA is right, or the other CPA or the other EA that right? So I think there's a lot more confusion. So I'm just going to give you the insider scoop, how the tax and accounting industry works. I've been doing it for almost 3 decades, and I came across so many wonderful CPAs and EA. When I say EA, it means that enroll agent. So many times we know the CPA designation, but we don't know much about EA. So EA is also very similar to CPA job functionality, but CPA includes 2 things. A CPA knows accounting as well as the tax. The EA enroll agent, which is granted by the IRS, you need to pass the 3 modules. Primarily, it deals with the individual taxes, the business taxes, and the compliance. So enroll agent or EA primarily deals with the taxes, versus CPA deals with accounting as well as taxes. So that is the difference if you're not aware about that. So whenever you go to your advisor, you have expectation, and let's talk about how the mismatch of the expectation is over here. So what happens is you as a client or customer go to your CPA, and when you go to them, your expectation is your CPA is helping you with your taxes, and you are thinking that your CPA is doing tax strategies for you and helping you reduce the taxes. On the other side, the CPA or the accountant or tax preparer or EA or whatever you want to call them, they think so you are coming to him or her to prepare your taxes. So what do I mean by preparing the taxes? So they think so that obviously you need to file your tax return by law, and you want to file correctly, and it is very complicated. So you don't know how to put the various numbers in an appropriate box in a tax return. So the tax preparer or accountant or CPA or EA is that putting the right number. And that, by the way, it is very complicated, even though it's not very intellectual, but still it is very complicated. You need to put the right number in the right box. Otherwise you will be in trouble. So that is essentially what this person is trying to do for you, to put the right numbers in a right box, and that file on a right deadline, to right authority in a right form, so you will be out of trouble and you will comply with the law. So that in his or her mind, they are doing is more like a tax compliance word, and that you would hear this one in the social media. It's called the tax compliance work. It means that that person is not doing a tax strategy, but that person is really filing a right form for you by the right deadline with the right number to right authority, so you can be out of trouble. That's plain and simple. So there's a big mismatch of the expectation. Client thinks so that my accountant is that doing the tax strategy. The accountant thinks so I'm doing the simple compliance works, and that's where the lots of issues you're seeing in the industry. So now what happens is you hear this one on a TikTok or the Instagram or the YouTube, hey, you can do cost segregation, you can do this, and so on and so forth. So let's think how the industry works, right? So this is very important. And so normally, if you are high income earner, those are the kind of client we deal with, those who are making at least $2 million. or so. By the way, fun fact, not majority, but probably I would say 1/3 of our client who comes to us who makes more than a couple $1 million, they file the tax return by themselves. Probably they think so that maybe I'm smarter with the TurboTax than my accountant or my tax preparer, and that many a time they are, because there's not a lot more things accountant is doing differently if that person is not a tax strategist or they think a different way. So that essentially they're putting the same numbers in a box, and if you're smart enough to put the right numbers in the right box and put it on the right form and file it to the right place, then you're good basically. So that's what has happened. So many people actually prepares the taxes by themselves. But anyway, what happens is, let's say if you're not filing by yourself, then you are going to your local CPA. This video is actually primarily geared toward who are making more than a couple $1 million. So my numbers is keeping those people in mind, and not for people who makes $100,000 or the 300,000 or so on and so forth. I'm talking primarily people who are making more than a couple $1 million in their annual income. Whenever you're making this kind of thing, normally your CPA charges anywhere, extra $1,000 to prepare your tax return, because you're going to have some extra rental income, and you're going to have RSUs, and you're going to have options, and so on and so forth. So in this scenario, your CPA charges anywhere somewhere between $500 to $1,000, depending on a complexity, and that is what you pay to your CPA. If you are, say, for example, successful small business owner, let's say you are dentist or medical practice owner or some software company or lawyer, if you're doing your own accounting and you are only going to your CPA or your accountant for the actual tax preparation, then that person might charge you anywhere from a couple $1,000 to maybe $5,000 annually for that one. And then that person gives you certain time estimated taxes, quarterly estimated taxes, and so on and so forth. And you call them a few times and that person answers. So this is how the industry works. So now if you look at that one, what happens is when you go with new ideas to your CPA or your accountant, what that person is going to say, no, it is too risky, you shouldn't be doing. There is a reason behind that one. Number one, that person is not getting paid on hourly base. So meaning that you pay them fixed $1,000, you're not paying more. So primarily that person works on a numbers game. The least amount of time that person is spending with you or on your work, that is better for him, because that that guy being professional, he's not selling some widget, he's selling his own time, so that people have that certain hours in a day, and how much time he can devote to the client, it depends basically. So in that scenario, he's not trying to give you any other advice. And that many a time what happens, let's say you are a small business owner and you heard about this SEP plan or SAP plan, and you go back to your CPA and say, I heard about this plan, should I put it? And if that guy say no, then he's in trouble, because if you figure out somewhere else that yes, it is actually the right thing to do, then you're probably trying to not to keep your CPA. And if that he says yes, then you will ask him a bunch of questions. By the way, most CPA knows about the SEP plan. They don't know about the defined benefit plan and some other qualified plan to work with. But anyway, the most CPA or the EA knows about the SEP plan, which is a very simple thing to do. So anyway, they will give you ideas, and then probably you're doing first time. So we said, how do I implement? So that guy is going to give you the actual card of local, actual financial advisor at the bank or some local street. There might be actual financial advisor, and you go there. So now that person opens the account. You put that maybe 55,000, 60,000, whatever you're allowed to put it in your SEP plan, and that person invests. And if that person loses, guess what? Whom you're calling? You're calling your CPA. That you gave me the name. Now that CPA has to go through all the issues and so on and so forth, and that guy's ended up spending so much time. Now CPA is not getting paid for any of this work, right? So CPA is not charging you. You're not paying them. Now that by showing you the new strategy or by implementing, CPAs ended up paying so much more time. What CPA is trying to do is trying to get rid of you of the phone. So many times we hear client who comes to us, they said, oh, my CPA is not responsive, he's not proactive. To be fair to my fellow accountant and CPAs and EAs is how much are you paying? And that other will do the math also, how it works. How much are you paying? How many CPAs you have seen, those who are driving Ferraris or the Bentleys or so on and so forth? Those are hardworking people, probably living in a modest house, driving Camry and so on and so forth. Nothing wrong with any of those kind of things, but those are hardworking folks, and you are anticipating so much more from that person in that little price. Now that it is not your fault as well. As a client, as a customer, absolutely it is not your fault. Unfortunately, that's how the industry has been working past for many, many decades. So you expect the CPA is doing my tax planning and the CPA thinks so I'm doing the compliance work. That's where the mismatch. So now that actually what happens is the CPA obviously will not do any other work, or any additional that time will not give it, because that guy is not getting paid. So now what happened is so many of my fellow accountants started learning about this one and say, look, that I need to figure out some way. So now they started selling the advisory package. So they will charge you $3,000-$4,000 additional. They say, hey, I'm going to do the tax planning and so on and so forth. But what happens is, as a client, as a customer, you suddenly say, wow, hold on, I was paying you $500. I'm not paying you $4,000 for the same tax return. You will give a lot more resistance to that actual CPA or your accountant, basically. And at the same time, the CPA also learned that, okay, I'm charging this guy. Let's say you are willing to pay and that the customer is paying. Now they have to figure out that this strategy is not as simple as one would think. There's actually quite a bit involved. Some of the strategy will require lots of time to implement the strategy. And that also, what if you don't do it right? Because many a time, if you look at many court cases, so many times the actual strategy was perfectly legal. It was perfectly fine, but it was not implemented right, because the devil is in the detail. You need to do it in the right way. And so many times it requires lots of time. You require lots of support staff. You require the appropriate team members. And that's where they realize that, okay, now I can charge a little bit more, but now I need the more people. So again, it is in the same dilemma, is that should I do it by myself and do not hire anyone? That's where there's a lot more chaos you are going to see as a client also, or as a customer. When you're high income earner, so many times you've been brainwashed, or you've been told by your accountant, oh, nothing can be done, you are actually W-2 employees, and so on and so forth. To some extent it is true, yes, that an actual W-2 owners has less options compared to if you're a business owner. But I'll tell you, we've been doing it for many years. We are a group of CPAs and tax attorneys and EAs and advanced tax planner, and obviously we take a client who makes more than a couple $1 million. Either it is W-2, K-1, 1099, it can be anything, but as long as you're making $2 million, we will take you as a client. Even as a W-2 earners, we can do so many things. We can really literally take your taxes to 1/3 or 1/2, those kind of things. You can do quite a bit stuff as well, but it requires lots of due diligence. It requires lots of expertise. It requires so much skill. And that, by the way, we are living in the knowledge society. Smart people have figured out that who's going to win the race, who knows more than other guys. So we are constantly in a race. Now, coming back to your local accountant or your local CPA, if that person is, say, charging you, so for example, $1,000 for a tax return, how many tax return that person has to file a year? So let me tell you that we are a group of CPAs, and we are somewhere around 20-25 people in the office, and we are growing. But I'll tell you what is the good CPA will charge you. If you were to hire the good CPA who has, let's say for example, 10, 15, 20 years industry experience, the ongoing salary is somewhere around $200,000 to $250,000. Even though you take the $200,000 as the extra salary you need to pay all the 401k, you need to pay for the health benefit, other benefit, PTO, social security tax you pay, the unemployment taxes, and then you need to provide the office, laptop, all of the work environment, office space, so many other things comes into play. So if you're going to look at, it's going to add at least the double the loading. For the business owner, it would be almost $400,000 to have that one CPA. So if you do the 400,000, and that I do have extra calculator over here, so 400,000 divide by, normally people works is 2,000 hour, right? So it is $200 per hour. That's what you are looking. If that CPA is not employee, and if that person is self-employed, the math is still same, right? So now that the CPA pays out of pocket for the actual licenses and for the rent and for the technology and for the other employees and so on and so forth. So that in that scenario, even to make a decent living, that guy needs to find at least 400 tax return. I have seen CPAs who file even 1,000 tax return. I've seen the CPAs even who file even 1,500 tax return. Obviously, it's not humanly possible. So obviously, you guessed it right. Your tax return is getting prepared in India or Philippines, and there's nothing wrong with it. I'm just saying that person cannot afford to essentially prepare your tax return. If you're paying $1,000, essentially that person cannot give you throughout your engagement more than 5 hours on your tax return. So anything you have expectation more than that one, that is what is the wrong expectation. That is also if you pay $1,000 in the fee to prepare your tax return. How do you expect this person to really spend hours and hours reading the court cases, the court laws, doing their due diligence on the various tax strategies? So unfortunately, that is where you will see lots of issue, is that we want the best advice, but we don't want to pay for that one. So that's where you will see quite a bit mismatch in the industry. If you look at the client or the customers are really frustrated, and at the same time, if you look at the CPA, they are equally frustrated because they think so that clients are very demanding, they want so many free stuff, they won't always say got a few moments and it will be half an hour call, they will send the email and they want the instant reply. So unfortunately, that is where you will see lots of issue in the industry.